Two readings before the sermon. They're short. The first is by Jennifer Pratt Walter. This is Creator. We are all infinitesimal stitches knit into the shawl of God. Her needles piece the mystery of the universe, how source arises from itself. Let your wonder take flight at the sharp miracle of breathing. Inhale, you are creation. Exhale, you are creator. And the second is A Strong Reverence for Life by Carol Hepikoski from the Humanist Voices in Unitarian Universalism collection. Those of us who call ourselves religious humanists have a strong reverence for life. Many of us experience a deep sense of awe before the mystery of life and death, those powers greater than ourselves. We share a respect for science and reason and are willing to live with ambiguity, to live without definitive answers. We share a deep concern about injustice and the fate of human life, indeed of all life on this planet, our home in the universe. We identify with the human story even as we recognize it as intimately tied to the story of the rest of the world. My environmentalism and my humanism are inextricably related. My humanism tells me that human life is important and worthy of respect and care. My environmentalism tells me that to be human is to be part of an interdependent circle of all life. It is counterproductive to imagine ourselves as separate. My knowledge of today's world informs me that planet Earth and thus human life are in danger because of the threat of global warming. I want to see life, including human life, preserved and thriving on our planet. My environmental humanism compels me to work to reduce the causes of climate change, the human practices that threaten the survival of life on Earth. And again, I do not have a written sermon for today. Instead, I will be receiving questions and perhaps comments from you, whatever that you have on the theme of mystery to offer. I know last week we didn't get to everyone's questions during the reflections on the sermon, so if you would like to offer something now, you're certainly welcome to. And I also know that we hit on some tender spots last week, and if anybody would like to continue conversation on those, we certainly have time now. We'll need the mics again, too. Thank you.
Mystery is such a huge issue, but I think of my mom. I've been a Unitarian Universalist well over 40 years now, and my mom always says to my brothers and sisters in a whisper that I can always hear, it's not really a religion. And, I know that we are a creedless faith. And sometimes it's tempting to say, well, we don't really believe anything. But would that be true?
Absolutely not. And whoever gasps, 100,000 points to your house. I think that is the best and most appropriate response. No, it is absolutely not true. Although it can feel that way because there's so much diversity of belief within our congregations, and every congregation is unique. So yes, I certainly can appreciate that from the perspective of religions that have much more rigid belief structures, that are much more doctrinal, that are creedal, that have statements of belief, which we have not used in well over 100 years in our congregations. And yet there are certainly things that do not apply. I think that that's one of the things that I love the most about our new values that were passed this last summer at our General Assembly. for those who may be new to Unitarian Universalism, our congregations as well as our national organization are all democratically run. They're run by the congregations, and each congregation is self-serving and votes amongst its own members on how the congregation moves forward. And so this summer at our General Assembly, conversation been had for about 4 years about part of the bylaws that talked about how we define ourselves. And so this summer they were finalized in a foundation of liberating love, and then the values that are all co-equal and interdependent amongst themselves that revolve around that are justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity. Some of my religious educator colleagues have come up with a mnemonic that's JETPIG that helps me remember to name all of them. And so all of those things are really important to us and have been important to us for years and years. Sometimes people are surprised that is what came out of the conversations that we've been having for the last 4 years. But truth be told, when surveys have been done about what Unitarian Universalists value over the last several generations, those things have come up again and again and again. So those are the same themes that we've been saying for years are the things that are most important to us. And things that do not focus on liberating love, justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, now you know I'm like going around the flower, interdependence and generosity are not things that we value. And so looking at the news this week, one of the things that general Unitarian Universalists value is universal health care. And with the events of this last week with the assassination of the CEO of United Healthcare, that's not something that we value. And yet we also are advocating for universal healthcare. And so we certainly might have compassion for the person, their family, and all those people, but also are still striving for justice in that we want healthcare for everyone so that people aren't feeling that their only way out is to do something so extreme and so violent. Joyce.
This is about a mystery to me. And either in a writing about you or one thing that you prefer is a give and take of not only things, but caring, and there is a name for it, and I think some organization on that. So could you explain that a little more?
I think you're talking about time banking?
Yes.
Okay. So years ago now, let's see here, 14 years ago, I had surgery on my back. And right about that same time, some people in the community that I lived in, which is Kent, Ohio, were launching a program called a time bank. And the purpose of time banking is to build community, ultimately. And the way that that's done is through an exchange of knowledge, of skills, of resources, sometimes of items. And the currency is time, because we all have the same 24 hours in a day. We all have the same 60 minutes in each hour. And so whatever you offer for whatever amount of time can be used to acquire something else, can be traded for something else that is of equal amount of time. And you can save your time credits and get something different. If you spend 15 minutes doing consultations on computers and you acquire 2 hours, then you could spend your 2 hours doing a coffee roasting workshop with somebody, okay? Time time banking is a really interesting program. It allows you to get to meet your neighbors in a new and different way. The very first exchange that I did was for somebody that I probably never would have met otherwise, who needed a pair of hands, which is in my skill set. And she was putting plastic in the windows. For those of us who know northern climates, know what plastic in the windows is for. It's to help insulate the home. And she had 2 small children, and she couldn't do it by herself. And so she literally just needed an extra pair of hands to help hold the plastic in place so that she could help heat it and seal it. And so it was a wonderful opportunity for me to get to talk with her a little bit, to get to play with her kids and entertain them and have them entertain me, which was really a big part of the thing. And it was just a wonderful opportunity to get to know somebody else who literally lived a block away from me, who I never would have met otherwise. And I participated in that program for all the years that I lived in Ohio before I left. And it was a really wonderful experience. We had monthly potlucks where we could get to know each other a little bit better and just learn, oh, like this person does this thing. They didn't even offer that, but like it would be really great for me. I want to learn how to do something. And yeah, it was, and so we did it in Kent. We had it all over the place. There were some other like hub locations. We had one in Twinsburg, which is about 15 miles away from Kent. Stowe had one, which was about 5 miles away from Kent. And so you could always interact amongst each other. And it was just a really wonderful opportunity. And then you could also make things. So I know you guys have not gotten to experience my chocolate truffle cakes yet, but I'm hoping to be able to actually come to the forum this Thursday. I've had to miss them the last couple of times. But I would make chocolate truffle cakes, and they cost me about $12 to make. And so somebody would pay me an hour and a half of their time, and then $12, and I would make them a chocolate truffle cake. And they were popular for birthdays and anniversaries and special events. And so it was really great to have that opportunity. And so I hope I answered your question. You have a little bit more?
I think too was the importance of a give and take and a sharing, and not one always giving
Yes.
and not taking. And
Yes.
that I thought was a very important point.
Yes, thank you. So one of the things that is really important is that if you're not asking for things, the program doesn't work. Like you can't always just be giving things to other people, right? You have to be able to ask for things. And so sometimes when people were in the negative in their terms of their time credits, we would celebrate them at our monthly potlucks every month. It'd be like, who's in the red? And people would raise their hands very shyly and stuff. And we'd be like, yay, thank you for making our time bank run, because that was how the time bank ran, is if people were asking for things and people were able to give. A lot of us tend to want to be givers, and we don't understand that if we're just giving all the time, we don't create an opportunity for people to care for us the way that we think we want to care for somebody else. And so opening ourselves, being vulnerable a little bit by asking for that support and help really also strengthens the network of exchanges and the neighborhoods.
My name is Bill. Back on the question on universal health care, how does the practice of Ayurveda, how would that fit into the equation of that? The Eastern
Yeah.
or holistic.
I think that holistic care should be offered. I certainly do believe that. I worked for 2 years at the VA. I did all of my chaplaincy training at a VA clinic. And I was surprised at the number of services that were offered to our nation's veterans that were not offered to the general public through the health insurance programs, including chiropractic care, acupuncture, and there were some other ones that were offered even when I was there. I've been gone for 6 years, so I'm sure they've expanded those services now. I think that would absolutely be a wonderful benefit. I understand that there may be special copay fees that might be involved with that, but I would certainly love to see that included.
inclusion of
Yes,
yes,
yeah,
Ayurveda is more like the holistic too.
yes, yes, yeah,
Which is more universal.
right, yeah. And Linda had asked, how do you start a time bank?
Last night, we were trying to put our Christmas tree together, and and it all came with lights on it. We got it all plugged in. We got the top, out of 3 parts of the tree, we got the top part and the bottom part, but no lights on the middle part. So if we needed help with something, do you have a list of people who want to be on the time bank?
That is, yes, what we had. There's software that's available that you can acquire a license to for an annual license. A really small time bank might just be a group of people who are interested in participating in exchanges amongst one another. Sometimes a time bank can even be helpful, even if somebody doesn't have can't offer a service themselves. They can offer a recommendation of somebody that they know who might be able to do something like that. So it can be really helpful that way. But yeah, depends on the size and what the hope is for the prospect of the time bank. But starting with a simple list of people who are interested in exchanging goods and services would certainly be one way to do it.
I would just draw your attention, if you haven't noticed, that everything that Reverend Kristina's been talking about our values centered with love, is on the cover of your order of service. So
is.
you can read it and study it at your leisure and maybe memorize it.
And use JetPig, it's really helpful. And then we've got one over in the choir too. Go ahead, yeah.
Okay. Going back to the murder of the CEO. Yesterday, Frank and I were talking about it, and I was telling him that, and I know this sounds awful, but am I the only one who has some kind of sympathy for the boy? Yes, I'm the only one? You're the only one. Oh, I'm sorry. So hear me out. One thing, there are several things in this thought. One of them is that I think this event shows how much out of everything that is reasonable we are in this society, and with the capitalism, the extreme capitalism that we got today, shows that an event like this can happen. And the other thing is that really bothers me is to see how much attention this murder gets, considering that we have murders every single day. So now we have this manhunt because this guy was a CEO of an important company. But what about the rest of us? So that's where my it's not sympathy for the boy, but there is a little part of me that kind of roots for him, for him not being caught. And I know that doesn't sound very you, but I can't help it. So.
I've been amazed not only at the amount of attention that's been given to this, but also, thinking about the number of people who die because they don't have adequate health care coverage. I mean, the people who die from not being able to access insulin and they're diabetic. I mean, it's just, when the news broke that the CEO had been shot, I shared with my partner, I was like, oh man, healthcare CEO has been shot. And he's like, do we know why? And I was like, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that somebody's claim was denied multiple times or something like that. I mean, like, I feel like it's, and he was just like, oh, and I was just like, I mean, like, and yeah, it's just appalling, the injustice that we see on a regular basis. And yeah.
Just to complete, I know that that doesn't solve anything. If anything, it makes it worse, right? Because it's not that suddenly we are all going to have a change of heart and say, oh, yeah, we have to change the world. We are just going to get more security for the CEOs. And so take more money away from the claims, right? Because we need to pay for the security of the CEO. So I know that that doesn't help at all, but I still feel what I feel.
Well, I'm not going to tell you that your feelings are wrong. Roger Cooper, and then we will get to you, I promise. Hi, Roger. You need to unmute.
Am I unmuted now?
You sure are.
Well, I want to commend Jake for bringing some information to us that we need. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to have brunch with a representative of the seminary from which I graduated. And she's going to ask me for an enduring she wants me to send them money always. And I send $50 once in a while just to keep connected. And I ask myself, why do I really care about being a UU? Well, here I have a chance to be a Lutheran Unitarian or a Unitarian Lutheran, the best of both worlds. I don't want to support an organization that I no longer believe in. And what I'm going to deliver to her tomorrow is a programmatic. She probably had a course in biblical studies studying Rudolf Bultmann's demythologizing program, where the myths in the New Testament, particularly the Christmas myths with angels and all that kind of medieval things that clutter the world of theology, he cleared the way for really a good critical biblical studies. And one of the principles of Martin Luther's Reformation was Ecclesia semper referendum, the church always in the process of reforming or rebuilding itself. I think that's true of our congregation. We're always looking for new ways to do things, testing the things that we always believed in. But the Lutheran Church has become like a mummy or an artifact that is no longer supportable by critical thinking about the Bible. And I'm going to put the burden on her to help me start a movement to reform the Lutheran Church the way Luther did it in 1517, because it's no longer a biblical institution, and we have to take scientific. The world we live in is no longer the tripartite universe of the heavens above, the earth beneath, and the water under the earth. Those primitive ideas still are part of Lutheran congregations. And I think that's a shame. No wonder it is losing members. But I'm going to have lunch with her. I'm going to tell her why I'm not going to be supporting the way I support you. Thank you very much for giving me a chance to share what I'm going to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. You might consider preparing your hammer and nails for your.
Oh, that's an idea.
All right, last one.
Morning, I'm Diane, and I want to say something to our. Talk closer into it. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Okay. I'm Diane, and I wanted to say something to you personally that it finally clicked this morning why I enjoy your messages. You're a poet. The words are just your vocabulary. You just inspire me, and I'd never. And maybe this was something you were reading, someone else wrote. Nevertheless, you found it about we all come from the womb and the tissues. And I was real curious about mystery. And I think that one little idea of we all come out of skin, I can't remember the rest, but it was just beautiful, and it was a ministry to my mind to hear that. So I'm so thankful to have you here.
Thank you so much. Oh, one more.
I had a discussion yesterday, I think it was yesterday, when we heard the news about the executive getting shot, and Eileen said, "Isn't that terrible?" And I says, "Well, I'm not so sympathetic. United Health is located in Minneapolis, their corporate headquarters. And of the 5 highest paid people in Minnesota, 3 of them or 4 of them are from United Health. These men make over $1 million. And this was 15 years ago, they made over $1 million. And I think, how are they really contributing to the goal that they have, a united health? It didn't make any sense to me. So it's hard to get sympathy when you realize that some of the people that really could have an impact aren't really producing that impact.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Tom. I think, yes, that the lack of equitable distribution of resources and wealth for sure is a huge problem, and just getting worse and worse and worse with every passing. It's not even a full year at this point. I think it's practically every quarter we're seeing how it has worsened. And certainly with the incoming administration, I have my concerns about what that will look like then as well. Okay.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have more a comment than a question. One of the most important pieces for me coming to this congregation is the feeling of belonging. There's so many places and things in the world where people are made so insignificant, where they feel so unimportant, where there is such a feeling of helplessness that I think can only be resolved, or can largely be resolved, by people being willing to reach out beyond their comfort zone to welcome other people in. And as I say, that's one of the things that I find most endearing about the congregation. I probably feel like I belong here more than almost any other place in my life. And it's because people who make you feel important, and people who to them, and people who carry those attitudes that people are important. So whatever we can do, whether it's a food bank, Christmas gifts for kids, or whether it's people inside the congregation or outside the congregation, I think some of our heaviest lifting is done when we can reaffirm for people that they have meaning in our lives. They are important. They're part of our community.
Absolutely. Thank you. And you all do an amazing job of knitting together that community.